All right, so let's get into this this deep dive. You know how sometimes we just get pulled into social media, even when we know we should be doing something else?
We all do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a look at what seems to be a chapter
Okay.
from a longer piece all about social media and the impacts it has.
Okay.
And it seems like it doesn't hold back on the downsides.
All right.
So you know that feeling when you get kind of sucked into your feed and lose track of time?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to try to figure out today.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So to get started, I guess what's really fascinating is that this source starts off by talking about the psychology. Like, why is social media so captivating?
Well, yeah, it really digs into that. It's designed to hook us. It's not a simple matter of willpower.
So when you say design,
Yeah.
what are some of the specific things that make us just keep scrolling?
Well, one major factor is infinite scrolling.
Okay.
So just think about how your feed just keeps going.
Yeah.
You never really see an end
Right.
that removes any natural stopping point, which makes it really easy to just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then there's variable rewards.
Oh, this is like the slot machine analogy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to see next. A funny meme. A friend's update. Breaking news,
So exciting.
right? It triggers those dopamine releases in our brains,
Oh, wow.
reinforcing the scrolling behavior.
So it becomes like a habit.
It does.
Oh.
Each like or comment or share is like a small win,
Like a little reward.
just like on a slot machine.
I can see that.
This is a huge part of how habits are formed.
Oh, that makes sense.
The more we repeat a behavior, the more it gets ingrained into our brains.
So it's not even that we're enjoying the content necessarily, it's our brains
Yes.
being programmed
Exact.
to want to keep scrolling.
Totally.
And speaking of our brains getting wired, the source talks about how this can actually decrease our ability to do deep work.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Well, deep work is a term that was actually coined by Cal Newport, and it refers to focusing without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. Oh, okay. It's that flow state where you're completely immersed in what you're doing
Yeah.
and you're making progress. But all of these distractions from social media, like notifications, the urge to check for updates,
Mm-hmm.
it really fragments our attention,
Yeah.
making it harder to get into that flow state.
It's like every notification is a little attention thief.
Yes.
I know I've definitely experienced that.
Yes.
When I'm trying to write something, one notification and I'm
Gone.
watching a cat video for the next 20 minutes. Have you found yourself being pulled away from important tasks because of social media?
Absolutely. The source calls this the just 5 more minutes fallacy.
Okay.
We think we're just taking a quick peek,
Yeah.
but those minutes quickly turn into hours.
That happens to me all the time.
It's such an easy trap to fall into, especially when those variable rewards are so compelling.
Right. And it's not just about productivity. There's research about how social media use can be linked to mental health challenges.
Absolutely. The source highlights a strong correlation between heavy social media use and increased levels of anxiety and depression.
Oh, wow.
It's partly due to the constant comparisons we make. When we're bombarded with these images and perfect lives, it's so natural to start feeling inadequate.
Yeah. You feel like everyone's on vacation while
I
you're
do.
stuck at work.
Everyone else is always having these amazing experiences,
Well.
and we're stuck in our routines.
And then there's this term called doom scrolling, which the source also mentions.
Yes.
What is that? Doom scrolling refers to the tendency to get sucked into a vortex of negative news and content, even though it just leaves us feeling anxious and stressed.
So you're watching all this negative stuff,
Yeah.
even though it's making you feel bad.
It's like we're drawn to this drama and negativity.
It's like a morbid curiosity almost.
Totally.
Yeah, and it never makes you feel good.
Never.
So it seems like the source is making a point that while social media has its benefits, we need to be careful about the downsides. That's right. And what's interesting is it doesn't just focus on the individual level, but also the broader impacts on society.
So beyond just our well-being,
Yeah.
how does all this scrolling affect us as a society? What kind of big picture issues are we talking about?
Well, one concern is the impact on our attention spans.
Okay.
That constant stream of bite-sized content may be contributing to a decline in our ability to focus on longer, more complex tasks.
Yeah, if you're used to getting information so quickly,
Exactly.
it's hard to sit down and read a book.
Right, and the source actually cites a bunch of studies suggesting a link between heavy social media use and decreased attention spans, particularly for younger generations
Oh, that makes sense.
who have grown up immersed in this digital world.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of concerning when you think about things like education or critical thinking.
Exactly.
If you can't pay attention, you can't really learn.
If we're constantly bombarded with these information snippets, it's hard to develop the skills to process these complex ideas.
Yeah. And beyond attention spans.
Right.
The source also talks about how real-life social skills could be impacted if we're interacting online more. Are we losing the ability to communicate face-to-face?
That's a valid point. It ties into that pressure to live up to these unrealistic standards we see online.
Yeah.
Especially on platforms like Hennegrams. Like, everyone is always on vacation,
Right.
eating avocado toast,
Looking amazing.
looking effortlessly stylish.
Right.
Yeah.
How does the source talk about this pressure to look perfect online?
It argues that this curated online world can really have a negative impact on self-esteem and body image,
Oh, wow.
especially for younger generations who are still figuring out who they are. It's important to remember that what we see on social media is a carefully constructed facade.
It's not real life.
It's not
Yeah.
not a reflection of reality.
It's like a highlight reel.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like social media is this double-edged sword
Definitely.
where you can connect and share information, but there are also these risks.
Yeah, it's not about demonizing social media, but understanding how complex it is
Okay.
and learning how to navigate it in a way that benefits us.
So how do we move forward? How do we use social media without getting lost in this endless scroll?
Well, the source actually spends a lot of time
Right.
exploring strategies for breaking free from the scroll and taking back control of our time and attention.
Okay, so tell me, what are some of the things that it mentions?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is setting time limits.
Setting time limits.
yeah.
Does that really work? I feel like I've tried that before, and I still end up scrolling for way longer than I meant to.
Yeah, it's not a magic solution, but it's a good place to start. The key is to be realistic and specific. Instead of just saying, I'll spend less time on social media, actually set a time limit for each app.
Okay.
You know, and there are actually apps out there
Oh, really?
that can track your usage and even block access after you've reached your limit.
So it's like a little digital accountability partner.
Yeah, exactly.
Do those apps actually work, though? Or do people just find ways to get around them?
I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people find them super helpful.
Okay.
Others might just ignore the limits or disable the app.
Right.
The source actually points out that it's more about being mindful about how you use social media
Okay.
rather than relying on external tools.
So it's like any habit entity. You have to figure out why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Not just try to stop.
Right.
What other strategies does the source talk about for becoming more mindful?
Well, another powerful one is disabling notifications.
Oh, okay.
All those pings and alerts are designed to get our attention and pull us right back into that scroll by turning them off.
Yeah.
You remove the triggers
Oh.
and reduce the temptation to constantly be checking your phone.
Oh, I can see that I'm constantly getting distracted by those little red bubbles.
Yeah.
It's like they hypnotize me.
Yeah.
But what about when you're actually trying to use social media to connect with friends or read the news?
Right.
Do you have to just completely stay off your phone
Yeah.
to avoid the scroll trap?
You don't have to. The source recommends scheduling specific times for social media
Oh, okay.
instead of just randomly browsing throughout the day.
So like putting it in your calendar
Yeah, exactly.
and stick into that.
Right. You can still enjoy social media without it taking over.
Right. So being intentional about how you use it
Hold on.
instead of just reacting to whatever pops up.
Exactly. It's all about setting those boundaries, just like you would with any other activity.
That makes sense. And
Right.
speaking of being intentional, the source also talks about being more careful about the content that we actually consume.
Yes. It's so easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff that's always floating around on social media.
So how do you curate a more positive experience? What can people actually do?
Well, start by unfollowing accounts that consistently trigger negative emotions
Okay.
or make you feel jealous or bad about yourself.
Right.
Follow people and pages that inspire you, educate you, align with your values. It's about making your digital space reflect your interests.
It's like making your own little online oasis
Exactly.
filled with good things.
Yeah, filled with content that supports your well-being.
And speaking of well-being, the source also talks about incorporating digital detoxes into our routines.
Yes.
What are those? What does that even mean?
A digital detox can be as simple as taking a few hours or a day away from social media.
Okay.
It's giving your mind a break.
So you don't have to throw away your phone completely.
Not at all. Some people like to schedule regular detox days,
Okay.
while others just take breaks when they need them.
It's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Totally.
But what if you don't want to totally disconnect? Are there ways to be more mindful while you're actually using social media?
Of course. The source actually suggests a few techniques for that.
Okay, like what?
Well, one suggestion is to pay attention to how you're feeling when you're browsing.
Okay.
Notice any changes in your mood or energy level. Are you feeling anxious, stressed, or even envious?
Yeah.
That could be a sign that you need to take a break or switch to a different activity.
So just being more aware of how you're actually feeling,
Exactly.
not just scrolling without thinking about it.
Right. And another technique is to use social media with intention.
Okay.
Instead of just scrolling through your feed,
Yeah.
actually look for content that matches your interests and goals.
Okay.
Engage in conversations, connect with people who inspire you. Use the platform as a tool for growth.
So be active, not just passive.
Exactly. Reclaim your power as a user
I like that.
and choose how you want to interact with these platforms.
Be the driver, not the passenger.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another thing the source mentions, the financial and economic side of social media.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting.
I have a feeling there's a lot more to this than we realize.
Absolutely. While we're all busy liking and scrolling, there's a whole industry built around keeping us on these platforms.
So you're saying that someone is making money off of me looking at cat memes?
You bet social media platforms are businesses.
Right.
And their business model is built on selling our attention to advertisers.
Okay.
The more time we spend on these platforms, the more data they collect about us and the more targeted advertising they can show us.
So they want to keep us on there as long as possible.
Exactly.
And
the longer we're glued to our screens, the more money they make.
That's kind of scary.
It is something to be aware of. The source argues that we need to be more aware of our role as consumers in this digital economy.
Okay.
We're not just scrolling. We're part of a system that's designed to profit from our attention.
So it's not just about us. It's about the whole system.
Right. And what can we do to regain some control in this system?
Yeah, what can we do?
Well, for starters, just be aware of how these platforms work
Yeah.
and why they're designed the way they are. The more we understand the game,
Right.
the better we can play it.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly. And the source also encourages us to be more critical of the content we see.
Okay.
Don't just believe everything you see. Question the sources, consider different perspectives, and engage in thoughtful discussions.
Be a smart user.
Precisely. And finally, the source asks us to think about how we can use social media as a force for good.
Oh, that's interesting. So using it to make a positive impact.
Exactly. Instead of just consuming content,
Yeah.
we can actively choose to engage with content that inspires us, educates us, motivates us.
So instead of focusing on what social media can do for us,
Yeah.
we focus on what we can do with it.
Exactly. It's a really important shift in mindset.
And it can make a real difference.
Absolutely. The source actually emphasizes that even small actions can have a big impact.
Like what?
It could be something as simple as leaving a kind comment or sharing an article that supports a cause you care about
Yeah.
or connecting with someone who might be feeling lonely.
So just spreading kindness and support.
Exactly. By focusing on these positive actions,
Yeah.
we can start to create a more positive online experience for everyone.
It's like a ripple effect.
Ex-
So to sum up, it's not just about reducing our time online or avoiding the negative stuff.
Right.
It's about building meaningful connections and making the internet a better place.
I love that. It's a really hopeful message.
It is. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to challenge our listeners.
Okay, I like a good challenge.
What's one small action you can take today to make your relationship with social media more positive? Maybe it's reaching out to an old friend, unfollowing accounts that you don't like,
Right.
or sharing something that inspires you.
Maybe take a few minutes to think about your social media habits and decide on one small change you want to make.
Just take that first step.
Exactly. Even small changes can add up over time.
So let's all go out there and be the change we want to see online.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment to talk about the source's concluding message and what we can all take away from this. Okay, so we're back. We've been talking all about social media, how it grabs our attention, how it affects our minds, and even how it plays into this whole digital economy thing.
Right. And we've talked about ways to kind of take back control, be more mindful, and even use it for good.
So before we finish up this deep dive, what does the source say at the end? What's the final message?
Well, it ends with this really strong call to action. It wants us to move beyond just consuming content and actually participate in making online spaces better.
So it's not enough to just know about the problems or try a few new things.
Right. We have to actually try to create a better digital world.
That makes sense. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all the negativity and information overload.
Yeah. But we can choose to be part of the solution, not the problem.
So what does it say we should do? What are some actual steps?
Well, it says we should start by asking ourselves, how can we use social media to do good? Can we use our platforms to help people who aren't heard or raise awareness about important issues? Can we use our creativity to inspire others?
So instead of asking, what can social media do for me?
Right.
We ask, what can I do with social media to make a difference?
Exactly. It's a whole new way of thinking about it.
And the source says even small things can make a difference. You don't need 1 million followers or a viral post to have an impact.
Right. Like, what are some small but meaningful things people can do?
Like leaving a nice comment on a friend's post. Sharing an article that supports a cause you care about. Maybe just connecting with someone who might be feeling lonely.
Those are great examples. It's about using our online voices to be kind and supportive.
And I bet that when we focus on doing good things, it makes our own online experience better too.
Absolutely. The source says when we focus on positivity, we can actually create a ripple effect that spreads way beyond just us.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see. We can do that online too.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, what is it?
What's one small thing you can do today to make your relationship with social media more positive and meaningful? Maybe reach out to someone. Unfollow accounts that bring you down. Share something that inspires you.
You could even just take a few minutes to think about your social media habits and decide on one change you want to make.
The important thing is to do something, even if it seems small.
Because those small changes can really add up over time.
So let's all try to be the change we want to see online. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of social media.
It's been great talking about this.
And we'll see you next time.